Hey guys, today is Thursday, July the 3rd, and I'm glad to be with you again today. Now, typically I get on here and it's me and Keenan here hanging out, just talking about the message from the last weekend a little bit, dialoguing some. Well, this week Keenan is out of town. He is off at a camp, hanging out with a bunch of middle school students with Chase, our student minister, having a great time out there worshiping and just growing in all kinds of ways. So today, instead of Keenan being here, we're joined by my good friend Michael. This is Michael Weaver here. Michael's a part of our church. Maybe you know Michael already. Michael's a doctor, right?
Yeah.
You're a doctor and serve in the area right here. And this past weekend, as Greg was preaching about Naaman and the healing of leprosy and the whole thing, during the middle of one of those gatherings, not which one, you shot me a text. You said, "Hey, can we talk about this week?" And he just wanted to talk about leprosy a little bit and what it is. And so I'm going to let Michael share with you some of his thoughts from a medical side, and then we're going to transition it and talk about it on a spiritual side, some things as well. So, Michael, I'll just turn it over to you, man. Let you kind of share what you've been thinking about, all right?
All right. For those of you who are wondering, yes, I am Greg's doctor friend. I would rather have MRSA than leprosy.
So you were the doctor friend
Yeah.
you referenced in the message. That's right. Yeah.
I also may have sent him a message in the middle of his sermon saying that. So,
Yeah, it's okay.
so leprosy is kind of this weird thing. In the Bible, they use the word leprosy to refer to a bunch of different skin conditions. But I think as we talk about this, talking about kind of our modern understanding of leprosy also really works. So let me start out by saying it's caused by a bacteria. It's a really difficult bacteria to kill. It's related to the same kind of bacteria that causes tuberculosis, if you've heard of that. There's about 200,000 cases worldwide, so not a very common thing. Only about 130, 140 in the US as of like 2022. Usually it's caused by close contact. If you remember reading Bible stories, they talk about leper colonies where they would send people off that had leprosy to live by themselves and not be around other people because they were unclean. It makes a lot of sense in modern medicine because if you're around those people too often, you could catch it too.
Yeah.
Your fun fact for the day is we actually have leprosy here in the US in animals. The armadillo, 9-banded armadillo, is actually a natural carrier of it. So don't play with armadillos. It's not a good idea.
Run them over.
Turn them into guitars.
There you go. There you
That's a
go.
common thing. So, leprosy causes these really long-lasting skin changes that are also associated with sensory loss. So a lot of times we see that leprosy attacks nerves, and it can cause deformity. It can cause your face to get paralyzed. It can cause you to have like a claw hand, depending on what nerves are disfigured there. It can cause you to have problems walking. It causes you to lose hair, eyebrows, facial hair. And ultimately, it can lead to loss of body parts because you don't feel it. So if it gets injured, you're not aware of it, and it just falls off. Not a great thing. People with leprosy become horribly disfigured, and they're both physically and mentally isolated from the rest of the community. They're mentally isolated from their own pain. They don't want to be around people. They don't want to deal with people seeing them the way that they are. And it's just a terrible thing to try to live with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. So when we think in the Bible, leper colonies, because we read about, the lepers and in the Gospels, there were 10 lepers over here that came to see Jesus and all those things happened. They were really just horrible places to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, horrible suffering going on.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be in those colonies. Everyone there would have kind of this unity within themselves of, hey, we're all in a terrible situation. Our life sucks, but we're just going to make the best of it. But it's not a place you would want to go visit. It's not a place that, based on the cleanliness laws, that you really could visit. Otherwise, you'd become unclean for a long time as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point. So there's nothing fun there. But they found, you said, a unity among themselves, right? Because they were unified in their suffering, right?
Yeah.
There was a connectedness there. So, so what else were you gonna think about here?
Yeah. So, when it comes to leprosy in modern times, thankfully, we do have ways to treat it. It's not easy. It's not a one pill and then you're done. It actually takes a combination of 3 really high-powered antibiotics that we don't use for hardly any other kinds of infections. And it's not like a week or two. You have to be on these medications for 6 months, a year, sometimes 2 years before it actually goes away. And at the end of the day, you still have the scars, you still have the deformities that it caused. You can't make those go away.
That's rough. So if I could just interject in that for a second, thinking about, and so you said a couple times, that I just want to grab a hold of is isolation, right? The uncleanness, they had to be apart, they couldn't be there together. Um, I don't know your take on this, and you might agree, you might disagree. Feel free to push back a little bit, but it occurs to me more and more. I think that with sin, and we're talking leprosy and the sin connection of things here. It's often not even the sickness; it's the isolation that's the worst, right?
Yeah.
How does so someone, and I didn't prep you for this, so I apologize. But if someone were to maybe it's a medical diagnosis that causes isolation, or it's a secret sin that causes isolation, how does the isolation affect us? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a really strong proponent of, we were meant to live in community. We were meant to be around other people, and other people strengthen us and they help keep us going when we're at our weak times. So when we're away from other people for extended lengths of time, you see increased rates of mental illness, things like anxiety, depression, and just quality of life decreases. We need to be around other people. We were created from the very beginning when God created Eve to be with Adam to find him a suitable helper. That is what we're meant to be. We're meant to be with God and with other people. And I think the medical world really shows that.
Yeah. It reminds me in the Word of God even says to not give up meeting together, because there's something about that being together, right? For worship times, for other groups, for gatherings, just to be with people. We were made for community, right? So you said something interesting to me as we were thinking this through a little bit about God giving a prescription for sin, right? What was that? Do you remember that?
Yeah. So, as a doctor, I write prescriptions for different illnesses. And, in my mind, people go home and follow those. It's not how it actually happens most of the time. And that follows perfectly with how we are as Christians. God has prescribed to us a way to live. He wants us to be with him. He wants us to act like Jesus. So in the medical world, if I see someone with leprosy, I tell them, you need to take this medication once a day, this medication once a month. You need to continue that for 2 years. But God talks about things that we need to do, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly. There's no set list that you need to follow with this. But things like, reading the Bible often, that's your daily medication. Or we can say daily meditation. The word sounds similar. I think that makes it easy to remember. You need to be with God every single day. If you're not, you're missing out on the best part of being a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need to gather with other people. That doesn't necessarily have to be every single day. Our schedules get busy. We don't have to be at the church building every single day, but we need to be around believers. But coming together, that special time at least once a week, I think is also really important. It's another treatment that we can give to ourselves. And things like prayer, obviously daily, and maybe even getting together once a month, or the Thursday night prayer nights that we have.
Yeah.
Those can be important times to get together and be with the community. I think there's a lot of things in the Bible that God says. I'm not telling you that my list is comprehensive. I only gave you 3 or 4 things. Obviously, that doesn't cover everything that we need to do. So
yeah, I hear all those things you're saying. They're all connections, right? There's connections to God in His Word, or in prayer, or to people, and it reminds me, even going back to the beginning of the Word of God, Genesis 1 and 2, the God created everything, and the people were in His image, and there's a it doesn't say it outright, but there's one evening God comes to walk with His people in the cool of the garden, and we can infer that maybe that was a regular practice for Him. He did it all the time, and in the middle of that, in Genesis 3, the enemy comes and whispers, twists and deceives, and they eat the fruit, and they immediately go hide. And God shows up and says, "Where are you?" Right? So immediately right there, the enemy attacks through this temptation, and he separates. He breaks the connections, right? And those lack of connections is where we see the pain, the isolation, the problems come in. And we see it with lepers in the Bible. We see it with modern day issues, leprosy or other ones that are there. That separation just kills us. We are made for connection with God and with people, and we have to connect in those things, right? Michael, as we're here, we're getting ready to wrap this up in a minute, but any last thoughts you had, or have you shared what you want to share?
Yeah. Well, I think another interesting thing that we haven't talked about yet, we kind of divide diseases into their acute, which is in the short term what they do, and their chronic phase. And, we've talked a lot about this pain of isolation regarding the acute phase of sin. So, like in leprosy, you start to see those skin problems coming up. You start to lose the sensation, it causes pain. But over time, you lose that sensation. You become numb to it, just like sin. So, these people that have had leprosy for a long time, like I said earlier, they don't notice when different things just kind of degrade on their body, if they lose certain body parts, because they're so used to it, they're numb to it. So, it's really important that we have someone else that comes into our lives. In my case, a physician coming in to diagnose. In the church, it's God coming into our lives to tell us that sin is a problem and we need to get rid of it. We can't take care of it on our own. So it's really important to have God be the primary focus of your life and have the other people in the church with you to overcome that isolation and that numbness that we experience.
Yeah. Because we do become numb to it, right? You made a little passing comment earlier about when you diagnose people, they don't always. You wish they would do what you told them to do, right? But they don't always do it because patients don't do that, right? We get tired, we forget all those things. We become numb, and when we're numb, we just slide into habits and routines and away from those things. And so when someone walks into our life and someone looks at us and says, "You know what? I noticed something in you that's not healthy," how should we react to that?
Well, we should freak out and say, "You don't own me," right?
That's right. Freak out and get angry. Absolutely. Healthy accountability is a good thing, right? That's somebody coming and saying, "I care about you enough to help pull back a layer on unhealth and say, I want to help you get healthier." And we should really say thank you in those moments, but we seldom do, right?
Yeah. It's easier to look back later and say, what you did was great. I do a lot of things with patients that are painful in the moment, but long-term will help them get better. And they don't thank me in the moment. They usually scream at me, curse at me, any number of things. But at the end of the day, I know that, this is important. I need to help here.
Yeah.
Our kind of mantra in medicine is first do no harm, which is not entirely accurate because sometimes we have to do that harm to do good, but it's always we're seeking to make people better. Yeah.
The end goal is always better, right?
Yeah.
Always. I heard somebody share once, and we've never talked about this before, but I had somebody share with me once that people who are pastors and people who are doctors have something very much in common. That we help people to get better. We want to prescribe things for physical pain, for spiritual pain, for these things. But the thing we have in common is that we often see people on their very worst day. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's true. And when somebody's on their very worst day, they don't always want to hear what they need to hear. And so sometimes truth has to be spoken with grace and with love and thick skin along the way. And so I just want to share with you today all these things. Hopefully it's been helpful for you. And if you are wrestling with something, if there's a physical or spiritual or emotional issue that's causing isolation, I want to encourage you to get help. Maybe that help is reaching out to me or to Michael or somebody at the church here, somebody else. We would love to just talk a little bit and have a conversation about what could be a better future for you. And we want to make sure God is in the center, in the middle of all that. We want to start with Jesus in everything that we do. Looking forward, we're still in our series called The Water. I haven't preached the last few weeks, and I'm not preaching the next 2 weeks. They're going to be great. Keenan Klein is preaching. This next week, I'll be in Mexico, serving with our missions team that goes down there to the orphanages we work with, Niños de Mexico. And so the next 2 weeks, Keenan is preaching, but then I'm back into it, and this will be a great kind of run toward the end of our series called The Water. I hope you'll join us. I hope you'll be part of things. And church, as we always say, we don't dismiss, we send. And so until we see you again, you are sent. Go and serve the Lord.